What's going on, everyone? So today we are again going to be talking about books for boys. So about 2 weeks ago, I put out a video just talking about what are books for boys, what does even books for boys mean, what does that mean, and just talking about books for people in general, and what kind of books are targeted for certain people. I decided to put this list together to also give some recommendations of books that people could choose from for books for boys. This list isn't really like books for boys. I would say this list is more for people that want books that aren't centered on romantasy or romance in fantasy or science fiction or whatever. This list is more just so for, if you want a book that isn't heavy on the romance and there's other things going on that take the forefront of the story, this list would be for you. So I have about 32 books and series here. Yep, that's me. It's like, no, just joking. I'm editing this right now, and I realize that I'm going to have to cut this video in half. So I'm not doing 32 books. Like I just said, I am doing only 15 books. And these books are going to be focusing on YA book recommendations for, young adults. Here, let's get into it. So I split this up into two different sections. I have like about 16 books that I'm going to be recommending for younger readers, YA readers, and then I have another section that is for adult readers, but more older YA readers could also read from this section too. So we're going to start in the YA section. First book that I would recommend. Do I even have it? First book that I would recommend is The Hunger Games. I loaned up my copy of the first book, but just Hunger Games trilogy, I think is an interesting story. Good dystopian story that doesn't focus on the romance, but more so focuses on the characters and just the situations that the characters are in. Next book I would recommend is Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson is a story of I think 11 or 12-year-old boy Percy Jackson who figures out that he is the son of a Greek god, and then just how his life transforms and changes from that revelation being revealed and being thrust into the world of the Greek gods. This is a great book for really young readers of like middle school, even high school. I read this series in high school. And all around funny because I love Percy. Okay. Next book that I would recommend is Legendborn. Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This book follows Bree, who is going to school, and then she figures out that she's been thrust into this ancient magical society. And this book centers around the legends of King Arthur and Camelot and those tropes, I guess you would say. I think any reader, young YA readers or adult readers, should read this book because it was a pretty interesting read for me, and I thought the twist was pretty good as well. Another book that I will recommend is The Golden Compass. The Golden Compass is a book about Lyra, who... So this book, we follow Lyra Blackwell. She lives in a world where I guess you could say your soul has a material body outside of your body, but you guys have a connection. And this book, I actually haven't read it yet, but I've watched the show, and it's a beautiful coming of age story of a lot of things. It's a beautiful story. I definitely would recommend because I'm sold on this series just from watching the show alone, but I am going to be reading this book later. So this is a great book for young readers, but adult readers as well. Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So Mistborn is one book that I would recommend just based off the fact that a lot of things by Brandon Sanderson I would recommend to younger readers, whether you're a teenage reader or an adult reader as well. I think Brandon Sanderson has a way of writing his books where it's very accessible to readers of various ages. And Mistborn is a story about Vin, who is an orphan, a street orphan, and she gets she gets recruited by this crew that wants to pull a heist on their god. I'm going to leave it at that. Definitely is a book with more darker tones, but for younger readers that are willing to take the plunge into something like this, is something I would definitely recommend to them. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. In Ender's Game, we follow Ender. That's his name. Interesting name. But basically, the humanity and humankind has been under attack by this alien species, and Ender and a bunch of other kids have been recruited into this military program to figure out a way to basically fight them off. And this series definitely takes a turn when you reach the end of this book. So this is another book that I would recommend to younger readers, not only because one of the main characters are teenagers, kids, but the exploration that these characters go on throughout the series is amazing. So the next book that I would recommend is Six of Crows. Six of Crows is another heist novel, and its book after is a heist novel as well. And in this magical world, we follow the leader of this heist crew, Kaz, who puts together a crew for a job where he has to steal something from a nation, something very valuable. But the reason to read this book is not only for the heist, it's for the characters in this haphazard crew that you would assume wouldn't work together, but they come together and they just figure out how to gel and accept each other. And I'm going to leave it at that. So the next book that I would recommend is The Chronicles of Narnia. It's a book that I haven't read yet, a series that I haven't read yet, but it's one that I would definitely recommend just based off of people's reviews and thoughts and feelings of the series in general. The Chronicles of Narnia is a portal fantasy where we follow the Pevensie siblings as they go into this other world by accessing it through various ways in the world. The most famous way that people might know is the wardrobe that they walk through. And in this world that they're in, they have to basically help out the inhabitants, from what I understand, to fight back the evil queen. Okay, so another book that I would highly recommend, one that I really loved when I was younger in high school, is the Wardstone Chronicles. This book starts off with a spook's apprentice, and we follow our main character, Tom, who is a seventh son of a seventh son, meaning that he has more abilities to see into the supernatural. He's able to feel things that go bump in the night. And he's basically tasked with this apprenticeship because he needs to help fight it off. And so in this series, we follow him and his master as they, go from town to town, finding witches, boggarts, banes, ghouls, and just casting them away, fighting them off. And as we go on through the series, we figure out that Tom has a lot more going on with him than we realized. This is a fantasy book that is more horror-esque because of the creatures that are used in this book. The next book that I'm going to recommend is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. In Skyward, we follow our main character, Spencer, who dreams of becoming a pilot, but not like flying an airplane pilot. In this sci-fi book, they live on another planet where they are constantly attacked by aliens or something from up above. And so Spencer wants to take it upon herself to help the effort in fighting them back. But there's some people at play that don't want her to be a pilot. And so in this book, we just follow her journey as she tries to become a pilot and, really sees what's going on with the rest of the world. The Shamer's Daughter. This is a book that I really liked when I was younger. In The Shamer's Daughter, we follow, I forget her name. So in The Shamer's Daughter, we follow Dina, a girl who has gained the ability from her mother to basically elicit shame from people, make people feel shame when looking at them. And it's because of this powers that her mother goes on a journey where that somebody has requested her abilities. But because of these abilities that Dana has, she isn't liked around because nobody would want to associate with her. everybody has something against her because of who she is, not because of what she's done. So if you want a book for younger readers, a nice book to recommend to them would be Stealing from Wizards. So Stealing from Wizards is a book about an orphan Kuro who lives in this wizard kingdom, and he's done everything to survive just by pickpocketing and being a thief. And then he gets thrown into a magical school where none of those things that he's learned to do growing up matters, and he now has to basically figure it out from there. Another book for young adults where it has more of a fantastical feel to it is a book called A Wizard of Earthsea. So this isn't a book that I've read yet, but it is a book about how this wizard called Sparrowhawk came to be one of the greatest wizards ever. And this book is just following his journey from, beginning to where he learned how to become one of the greatest wizards, apparently. So Shattered Sea is another series, and it's a fantasy series where we follow our main character, Yarvi, who has grown up basically knowing that he wouldn't be like his brother or his father. His father is a king, a warlike king that, is involved in a lot of wars. So Yarvi was born with a disability, and this disability doesn't help him in a fight. And so his life up until now has basically been focused on not fighting, but in government. But when his father and brother, when his father, the king, and his brother, the next in line for the throne, have been killed, Yarvi is thrust into succession for the throne. And so now his life has been turned upside down, and he must face basically what he didn't think he was going to be doing his whole life. I don't know how I forgot about this book, but a book that I would definitely recommend is Red Rising. A lot of people describe this book as Hunger Games on Mars with a lot more future-esque applications thrown in there. So in Red Rising, we follow our main character, Darrow, who lives in this society where it's structured with a caste system that is color-coded. And obviously, our main character gets the short end of the straw, and he's at the bottom. He is a red. And he thinks that a lot of the work that he is doing is something to help and will basically help future generations make the planet inhabitable. And once he finds out that the work that he's been doing is actually not what he believes, and it's not to make the planet inhabitable for future generations, and that the government and the powers that be have been lying to them this whole time, well, the Reds are gonna rise. So that long ass list is just to say, yes, there are books for boys and books for anybody that just doesn't want to read romantasy. I just listed so if you know anybody that says that there are no books for boys, send them this list and let them know that there's plethora of books that boys can read. Anybody can read, really. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.